This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. From the corporate office to the cab of a truck, they're here to inspire and empower women in all professions. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome. We're an award-winning show dedicated to empowering women in every profession through inspiring stories and expert insights. No topic is off limits on our show. We power women on the road to success with expert and celebrity interviews and information you need. I'm Shelley, and Kathy's on assignment. Too often women doubt their strength as well as their power. This kind of self-doubt or imposter syndrome holds them back. Nicole Kalil helps professional women thrive as their authentic selves. She believes women don't need to be empowered. They're already powerful. She's the host of This Is Woman's Work. She works to eliminate gender expectations and redefine what is woman's work. She's the author of Validation is for Parking, as well as an in-demand speaker and respected coach. She can help our listeners become confident. I have Nicole with me today. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you for being on the show with me.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me, Shelley. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to hear what you have to say. You know, you're an incredible champion for women with a terrific message. Before we get into that, I thought we could talk a little bit about your background. How'd you get started on this mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So outside of college, I kind of had this I don't know what to do with my life moment. And I got a job in the most accidental way you possibly can. My cousin's best friend's father heard I was looking and was like, oh, you can apply at my company. Long story short, that started my journey in finance. And I spent the next 15 years working my way up the corporate ladder and became the first woman chief development officer in my company's over 150-year history. It's a Fortune 100 company. And as you might imagine, in the world of finance, it's still to this day very male dominated. So I was often the only woman in the room, and really leaned toward and heavily on my more masculine strengths and tendencies and ways of communicating as a way to not just survive, but like make it in that environment. And there was a very specific moment when I was promoted to chief development officer where we were all celebrating. We're in this massive conference room. There were hugs and high fives. And somebody in my training department leaned over to me and said, I wish I had the confidence that you have. And it was like a knife to the heart because all I wanted to say back was, I wish I had the confidence you think I have. And it was right at that time where my problem or my challenge became clear to me, which is I didn't know what confidence was. And I was certain I didn't have any of it. I was faking it. It was all for show. It was about what looked good and confident and successful. And the way that I felt on the inside didn't match at all the way it looked on the outside. So that began my obsession with confidence and what it is and how you build it. And, that sort of created the new trajectory for my work and what I'm up to today. So I can go into far more details if you want, but that's the overview of all of it.
Confidence is so important. It's not something we're taught.
No.
And it's rather interesting. It seems like men handle it differently. They kind of act like, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
And women will play along. Like you said, you kind of adopted the male attitude to compete. And bravo, by the way, on how you were able to work your way to the top, because there's so many obstacles. But I think inside, women still have a doubt. And I know, well, for me, for example, I originally wanted to go into music. And I remember as a teenager having to do all these auditions, for piano and voice. It was so competitive and it was so intimidating. And I think that kind of threw me off. I thought, I don't have the chops for this. And it was the confidence issue. No one tells you how.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're inundated with messages about how to look confident, right?
Mhm.
But very rarely does anybody come along and tell us how to be or become confident. And even worse than that, I think the word confidence is being misused and misinterpreted so much that we don't even know what we're talking about anymore. So one of the things that I did is go to the etymology of the word confidence. I really wanted to understand what it is we're talking about here. And, the what it was in Latin, how it translated into Middle English and all the other languages, all of that work led me to the discovery that the word that most closely associates with the word confidence is trust. And so when we talk about confidence, what we're actually talking about is the trust we have for ourselves. Confidence
Okay.
is firm and bold trust in self. Now, that's not what is being messaged, I don't think. That's not the examples we're seeing or what was being talked about on the regular. But that is what I am talking about when I use the word confidence, firm and bold trust in self. And I think just that distinction can be really powerful.
Oh, it is. I like that. And it makes so much sense because quite often you will encounter someone who's trying to exude confidence. They come off arrogant,
Hmm.
and
Absolutely.
that really puts people off.
Well, yeah. And I think even further down that path is this idea, this notion that we have that confidence is more of an external thing than it is an internal thing.
Mhm.
And my research and experience and observation and all the things have taught me quite the opposite. I often talk about what I call the false equation of confidence, and it's if X happens, then I'll feel confident. And that's, I think, how most of us are operating in our day to day lives. If X happens, and you can fill in X with whatever you want. If I get the career of my dreams, if I make a certain level of income, if I get a certain amount of followers on social media, if I fit into a certain size or see a certain number on the scale, if my children are perfectly well behaved, if I get the compliment or validation for the work that I do, if I get that promotion, I mean, we could go on forever. But if any of those things happen, then I'll feel confident. And the reality is, it just doesn't work that way. What actually ends up happening when we subscribe to that false equation is we become addicted to X. And
Mhm.
we feel like we need X, whether that be compliments or validation or followers or whatever, in order to experience the feeling of confidence. And it's temporary and it's fleeting and we become addicted to it. And I think it's pretty obvious when you look at it objectively that that's not confidence, and yet that's how so many of us are trying to be and become confident. And it's just not, it's not working.
Right.
Confidence is built internally. It's not
Mhm.
something we find or that is given to us externally. I think we think about it like there's someone or something outside of ourselves out there walking around with our confidence, and it's our job to find them and get them to give it to us, right? But it
Mhm.
just doesn't work that way.
It's interesting. People are looking for outside validation. Social media really works against the internal confidence because you see teenagers and even people who aren't constantly looking for those likes and shares. They live for the outside validation.
Yes.
Hmm.
Well, and so I know that there are ways to be confident and be on social media, but I will tell you personally, I've made the decision to get off of social media and have been for, about a year and a half now. As far as posting and using it for business growth, because for me, my confidence doesn't live there. It's just a matter of moments when I get on social media where I can get caught in the comparison trap, or when I start worrying about how many likes I've gotten or, followers or whatever. And it just became apparent to me that this wasn't a healthy place for
Hmm.
me to build my own trust. And so I made that very personal decision. Um, but it's not so much social media, it's the things that it triggers, these what I call confidence derailers, like comparison and like perfectionism and, all of those things that are regardless of where you do it, whether it's on social media or elsewhere, it does damage. It chips away at our confidence. But I feel like social media makes it really easy to fall into those traps.
Oh, yeah. People are becoming suicidal and depressed and all kinds of things just with social media and everything they see everybody being so perfect.
Right.
Their
right.
life is so wonderful. And look at the great food that they have on their plate. It's like, it's got to be really tough to be a teenager and to try to evolve as a young adult and get the proper perspective on confidence, self-confidence, and empowerment. And I do think that with women, we are maybe put in a different category or taught to be different. I think that we're taught we have to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we are definitely socialized differently. And I think the research is clear. Children have and report and demonstrate the same level of confidence for their younger years up until typically around age 8, let's say 6 to 10 for a range, but around age 8 is where we start seeing a separation between young girls and young boys' confidence. Now, if you're non-gender conforming or identify as a different gender, I'm not trying to exclude you. There just isn't data. There isn't research being done. So, or hasn't been a lot up to this point. So, what we're seeing is really this separation of confidence around those young ages between young men and young women. And it gets wider and wider as we go. In our 20s is where it's the furthest apart, which, if you think about it for a second, all the decisions, all the choices, all the things that are happening in our lives when we're in our 20s, we're often deciding what we want to study, what we want to do for a living, what types of environments we want to work in, whether or not we want to work, who we might want to spend the rest of our lives with, whether or not we want to birth other humans. I mean, there are big things that are happening, and we're doing that, generally speaking, with less confidence than our male counterparts. Now, what's interesting is in our late 40s and into our 50s, there's a sort of coming back together where we start leveling back out. And in our 60s and beyond, we actually see women having more confidence than their male counterparts. So yeah, we are being socialized differently. And I think some of the things specific to women are doing some real damage for that trust that we have in ourselves. I'll give the example of young girls being taught to be more polite and pleasing and being more mindful of what other people think about us. That obviously has the opportunity to separate us from our authenticity, from our feelings, from our truth. And it's hard to trust when those things happen. We're also taught to be more others focused, more nurturing, more in tune with what other people want and need. And that serves to create some distance and separate us from our own wants and needs and desires. I mean, the list goes on, but yes, this is very much learned, socialized separation. We are not born with less confidence than our male counterparts or really anybody of any gender. We are sort of raised out of it. And so our opportunity is to rediscover it.
So how do we rediscover that? I mean, old habits are hard to break.
Sure.
And certainly, and if you have these internalized beliefs, a belief system, that's really tough because there's always this little voice going, I don't know if I can do that. You sure you really want to try that? It's hard.
Yeah. It is hard. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it, right? And we'd live in a very different world. And I think it's how we get good at anything is practice, right? And how we unlearn old behaviors and relearn new ones is through practice. And it's a day-to-day ongoing practice that we have the opportunity to bring into our lives.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
If you're enjoying this informative episode of Women Road Warriors, I wanted to mention Kathy and I explore all kinds of topics that will power you on the road to success. We feature a lot of expert interviews. Plus, we feature celebrities and women who've been trailblazers. Please check out our podcast at womenroadwarriors.com and click on our episodes page. We're also available wherever you listen to podcasts, on all the major podcast channels like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, you name it. Check us out and bookmark our podcast. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other sites. And tell others about us. We want to help as many women as possible. No one teaches us confidence. We're taught how to look confident. Even the word confidence is misused and misinterpreted. Confidence coach and author Nicole Kalil says the word confidence really means the trust that we have in ourselves. Firm and bold trust in self. It's internal. Nicole talks about the false equation of confidence. If X happens, I will feel confident. Fill in the blanks. If something happens like that dream job, then I'm going to have that confidence. The reality is it doesn't work that way. What happens is when we subscribe to that equation, we become addicted to X, which could be a compliment or validation, in order to experience the feeling of confidence. That's temporary and fleeting. It's also external. It doesn't work. Confidence is built internally, not externally. Nicole is the author of Validation is for Parking, and she's also the host of This is Woman's Work. She's offering some insight on building our internal power. Nicole, what sabotages our confidence?
In my work, one of the things that I've done is I identified 5 what I call confidence derailers. These are the things that are chipping away at our confidence, women at a much higher level, and that are doing damage, whether we're aware of them or not. So I think with the confidence derailers, it's about becoming more mindful, more aware, doing some things that can protect ourselves from those derailers coming into our lives on a day-to-day basis. And then I've identified confidence builders. These are things that anyone can do anytime they want that repair and rebuild trust within ourselves. And I'm happy to go into all of them or any of them. But it's really that combination of being mindful and protecting ourselves against the things that are chipping away at our confidence, while also practicing and doing the things that we can do that are within our control to build that trust within ourselves again.
I'd love to cover that. I think that a lot of times people aren't really aware of what's chipping away their confidence. So identifying that, you said you identified 5 different things.
Yes.
That would be great because people will have the aha moment.
Yep. Yeah. So we've talked about a few of them already. Let me just list the 5 and then we can go a little deeper into any and all of them if you would like. So the 5 confidence derailers. First is perfectionism. This thing that we very often do, that we hold ourselves to unreasonable, unattainable standards and then beat ourselves up for falling short, which is the only available option because nobody's perfect, right? This idea that we're supposed to do it all, be it all, have it all, look good while doing it, and somehow make it look effortless. Perfectionism is the enemy of confidence. The second confidence derailer is what I call head trash, because I want it to sound as dirty and disgusting as it actually is. Other people might call it your inner critic or negative thoughts, but it's the things that we say to ourselves about ourselves that are never kind and very rarely true, like based in fact. They're interpretations that we relate to as if they're true, but it's just crap we say to ourselves that we would never say to a best friend or a partner or a child. And yet somehow we're saying it to ourselves. And so head trash is the bully of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
The third confidence derailer is comparison and judgment, which we talked about already. It's, when we have the audacity to compare our everyday, regular, normal lives to somebody else's best moments, right? And that's what we see on social media or on stages or when we're interacting with people is we see what they want us to see. We see their best bits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, we compare ourselves. And in a lot of cases, I think it's easy to see how when we compare ourselves and fall short, that it would chip away at our confidence. But the reality is any form of comparison, even if we feel better about ourselves momentarily, does damage to our confidence, because confidence is not comparing yourself and coming out ahead. Confidence is not needing to compare yourself to anyone at all. And so we call confidence the thief, or comparison, sorry, we call comparison the thief of confidence.
I like that. I like that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's rampant. I think we are all experiencing it, right?
Oh, yeah.
The fourth confidence derailer is overthinking. I want to be very clear. Thinking is not a problem. We should all be doing it. It's when we tip into overthinking that it's doing damage to our confidence. And the reason is because overthinking creates inaction.
Yeah.
And inaction leads to our biggest regrets. If we talk to, and there's lots of study on regret, and ultimately the findings are pretty clear, is we regret mostly the things we don't do, the dreams we didn't chase, the conversations we didn't have, the risks we didn't take, the forgiveness we didn't give. We regret what we don't do far more than what we have done. And so overthinking is really problematic as it relates to our confidence, because it creates inaction. We're not doing anything about what matters most or what we claim to care about. And so we think of overthinking as the manipulator of confidence. And then finally, the con artist of confidence, the fifth confidence derailer, is seeking it externally. It's that false equation we talked about earlier. It's the looking outside of ourselves for someone to give us, grant us, bless us with confidence. It's, really waiting for X to happen and thinking that confidence is something that needs to be earned and proven and validated externally in order for us to experience it. So those are the 5 confidence derailers. Again, happy to dive into any one of them if you want, or talk about the builders. But I think those are doing damage to all of us, regardless of our gender, but are heightened for most women. And I have yet to interact with a single woman who's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never experienced any of those things. More common is, women saying, I experience all 5 of those like on a daily basis. So,
I've had some of those derailers. Perfectionism, head trash, comparison, judgment, overthinking. I've done all of those things. I know you said you're a recovering perfectionist. I'm still trying to recover.
Same.
It's same. I think I started first exhibiting the perfectionism probably around 2nd or 3rd grade. I had to get perfect grades, and I don't know why, but that's just something that, I had to. I've always been a high achiever. That's part of it. But I always set the bar for myself, probably higher than other people would have for me.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to that, how we've been socialized. And this isn't obviously universally true, but for a lot of us, we're getting the messaging that our value and our worth needs to be proved. Whereas young boys more often get the messaging that their value and worth is inherent.
That's a
And
huge difference when you think about it. And you can really see
huge.
that could seriously undermine a woman. I mean, that's a whole different perspective.
It's a wild distinction and
Yeah.
wreaks havoc on many of our lives. And I think, part of our life's work is to reconnect with and reclaim our own inherent value and worth. And again, easier said than done.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the recovering perfectionist thing, I think, we've probably all experienced some version of all five of the derailers, but the reality is most of us have one or two of them that are more prevalent, that we experience on a more regular basis. For me, I'm a perfectionist overthinker, right? Those are
Mhm.
my two go-tos. And I say that I'm recovering. And when I'm under periods of stress or feeling overwhelmed or feeling pressure, it is incredible how quickly I will default right back to
Yeah.
perfectionism and overthinking,
Yeah.
even knowing what I know. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I find myself here again? Like, how does this
Yep.
happen? But
Yep.
it's crazy.
I've experienced the same thing. Overthinking. I think women tend to ruminate on things that
Yes.
men don't. Men just do. Females have to think about it. And maybe we're biologically wired to do that because we raise children and that sort of thing. And we have to think, okay, what's the safest course of action here? And you're
Yeah.
always having to plan ahead. What's that kid going to be doing? you know?
Right.
Um,
Well, and I think there might be something to that. And this is not my area of expertise, but when we talk about masculine and feminine, we often associate thinking with masculine and feeling with feminine. And I just wonder if some of this overthinking, over ruminating is an imbalance that has been created by our environments, by our upbringings,
mhm.
and by this, questioning of our inherent value and worth, because trust is a choice and a feeling. But at least in theory, we would have a tendency to think of that as more of a feminine trait, this,
Sure.
trust and self trust in others. Um, and yet, to your point, I think overthinking is really doing a lot more damage to women. I catch myself doing it far more than I do my husband. I
Mhm.
caught myself doing it far more than I did my male colleagues. Um, I was talking to a young woman that I coach, and she was sharing about her overthinking with her boyfriend at the time, and he was blown away. He's like, "All that is going on in your mind all the time?" And she was like, "Yeah, what are you thinking about?" He's like, "None of that."
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's anecdotal, but I do think it is more prevalent with women.
Well, if you listen to a guy and how they process things, they'll just say something like, well, just run with it. You know?
Yeah. Yes. Well, and I think that that is a little bit of that demonstration that of confidence, of firm and bold trust in self.
Uh huh.
We see this in studies where, men apply for jobs if they feel like they meet 40 to 60% of the qualifications, where women wait to meet 100% of the qualifications. And there's a whole lot of other studies that reinforce that same thing. But ultimately, it's what you're saying. Men think, I will figure out the rest as I go.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that I can put myself out there and that it will work out and that I will figure it out. It is a deeper level of trust in those moments, and therefore deeper level of confidence that's being demonstrated. Whereas we as women, we think we have to have all the answers, done all the research, be totally prepared,
Yep.
be 100% ready. And that's not trust. That is something totally different. And the reality is we cannot be 100% ready for something new that we've never done before. That's not an available option.
No.
And so we're delaying or dismissing all of these opportunities
Mm-hmm.
because we're choosing something other than confidence, other than firm and bold trust in self.
Sure. It's almost with the way we're socialized. Men view confidence as an entitlement. It's something that's intrinsic to them. We have to learn it. And if you have that doubt, you are going to miss opportunities. You're going to overthink things, and all of a sudden, poof, the opportunity just left.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say a little differently is I think confidence is inherent in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was a word you used and now I'm blanking on it, but
A learned behavior.
yeah,
Perhaps? Yeah.
yes, I actually think that we women have unlearned their confidence and we get to relearn it.
Okay.
I don't. Again, the research up into age 8 is about the same, regardless of gender. So something's happening something is happening that's separating young girls from that confidence.
Yep.
And it's depressing. I also choose to look at it as good news because that means it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yes.
it's possible. And so our opportunity is to find it and reconnect with it and build it and hold on to it for dear life.
Oh, yeah, because you have to have it. And we have so many derailers, like you were talking about: perfectionism, head trash, comparison, judgment, overthinking, and then, of course, seeking externally. Today, it's even more challenging with social media because
Mhm.
everybody wants to look a certain way and they want the approval factor. So it's got to be far more challenging than it ever was.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
Women are not born with less confidence than their male counterparts. They're actually raised out of it with socialization. This is often why women struggle with self-confidence and imposter syndrome. As we go along, we rediscover it. Confidence coach and author Nicole Kalil helps women gain the confidence they didn't know they had. She's identified 5 confidence derailers, including perfectionism, head trash, or the inner critic, comparing ourselves to others, overthinking, and seeking confidence externally from someone or something outside ourselves. Her insight's amazing. She's the author of Validation is for Parking and the host of the podcast, This is Woman's Work, which we feature on our website at womenroadwarriors.com under the Power Network tab. Nicole, how do we get out of the confidence derailer trap? What are some of the solutions?
Yeah. So I'll share 5 confidence builders, but before I do, I just want to keep bringing us back to this concept that confidence is when you trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so ultimately what we're talking about is building trust within yourself. So a great starting point is to just ask yourself, how do you build trust? How do people build trust with you? What matters to you specifically and individually when it comes to trusting people? Because whatever the answers are for you are your best starting point. And what we want to do is turn those internal. So I'll give a few examples. I've heard people say, well, I trust people more who keep their commitments, right? If you do what you say you're going to do, I have a tendency to trust you more. I tend to lose trust in people who are flaky or who don't show up when they are or say they're going to, or, blah, blah, blah. So if that's true for you, then your opportunity to build your own trust, your own confidence within yourself is to keep your commitments, very specifically, the commitments you make with yourself. Again, as women, we have a tendency to be others focused. We have a tendency to prioritize the commitments we make to other people first, our children, our bosses, our colleagues, our friends, our family members. Those get elevated, whereas the commitments we make to ourselves, like I'm going to take care of my body, or I'm going to work out or eat healthy, or I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to do this thing that I love, or I'm going to stand up for myself, or I'm going to speak my truth, or whatever it is, right? We tend to put those on the back burner. We also have a tendency to overcommit. And so if that is important to you as it relates to trust, then your next best step is to begin to prioritize and keep the commitments you're making to yourself. Now, this is not about perfectionism. Nobody keeps 100% of their commitments 100% of the time, but you want to work to be a person who keeps more of your commitments than not, and prioritizing the ones you make to yourself. So that's an example. Now I can go into the 5 builders, but let me just pause. Any thoughts or reactions to that sort of starting point of being in discovery about how you build trust?
I think it makes total sense. And keeping commitments to yourself, that will make you trust yourself. You can rely upon yourself. If you make commitments to yourself and you keep them, then you're going to also follow through and make commitments to other people and keep them as well. Reliability.
Yes.
And
yes.
Today everything can feel so unreliable, so cyclical. So what's going to happen today? I think, especially since the pandemic, people have really felt that way.
Yeah. Well, and you're right on with the reliability thing. And often people talk about exercise or working out as a way to build confidence. It's really interesting because the answer to whether or not it builds confidence is yes and no. If you are working out for external reasons, it actually doesn't do much to build your confidence. If you're working out to get to a certain weight, or lose a certain amount, or have a certain body type, or if you're focused on what other people are going to think of you and the outcomes of working out, you're probably not going to build very much confidence. And we all know people who work out and are not confident, or who, have eating disorders and whatnot. But one of the reasons it can build confidence is because most of us, when we work out, are keeping a commitment that we make to ourselves, whether or not we feel like it, right? And we're pushing ourselves past our comfort zones and our perceived, points of where, gosh, this is too hard. And so we're learning about ourselves. We're prioritizing ourselves. We're keeping commitments to ourselves. We're stretching ourselves. Those are the reasons why working out can actually build your confidence, not because of the outcomes and how you look on the other side of it, which I think is opposite of what a lot of people think.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let me share the 5 confidence builders. And again, I can go into any one of them a little bit deeper. The first is action. Action builds confidence. One foot in front of the other towards what matters most, right? And I think as women, we often think something needs to be big or public or, huge in order for it to count. And the evidence is really clear. Even the smallest steps, even the tiniest actions, serve to build our confidence. It's about one foot in front of the other towards whatever it is that matters most to you, or that you're trying to accomplish. Action builds confidence. We can't think or hope or fingers and toes cross our way into it. We've got to get into action to create it. The second confidence builder is a surprising one, and that's failure. And I use the word failure because it has a big reaction and a big charge for most people, but it's really all of those icky feelings: failure, fear, doubt, mistakes, messiness. It's it's working our way through those moments that builds confidence. Why? Because that's where we require the deepest levels of trust. It's easy to trust ourselves when we're winning, when we're achieving, when everything's going according to plan. It doesn't require much from us to trust ourselves during those times. Where we build really deep, meaningful, lasting trust is during those icky moments when nothing's going at all according to plan, when we are feeling the doubts and the fear and we've experienced failure, choosing to trust ourselves, choosing to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and get back into action.
Yep.
And to trust that it will all work out and that we will be okay no matter what. That's where real confidence gets built. So ironically and oddly, failure builds confidence.
Failure is a learning opportunity. Oprah Winfrey was actually quoted as saying, failure is another stepping stone to greatness.
Exactly.
And it makes a lot of sense. If you think about it correctly, those failures can inspire you because you're going to be more innovative. You're going to do it a different way.
Yes. And I think a distinction sometimes with women is we become our failures and our fears and our doubts. We take them on. So a male counterpart might experience the exact same thing and they might say, I failed at. A woman might say, I'm a failure. We tend to internalize a lot more. And I think, again, that's an opportunity. And why they become stepping stones to greatness is when we understand that it is a requirement for success and that we are not our mistakes and our failures. We have the opportunity to learn from them, to grow from them. They often are the gifts and the opportunities and the redirects that we need to get what it is that we want in our lives. Nobody has ever experienced success without also experiencing failure. And it's just this important learning. And one of the things I often do is to remind myself, I have doubts. I am not my doubts, right? Like I have fear, but I am not afraid, right? Like, so
that's right. It does not define you.
Exactly. Exactly. The third confidence builder is giving yourself grace on the journey. It's really about talking to yourself about like somebody that you love, saying to yourself what you would say to your child or your best friend or, somebody that you love, as opposed to the mean, nasty head trash that we typically do. But I also think it's important that on the journey part, the giving yourself grace on the journey, to remind ourselves that confidence is not something we arrive to, plant a flag and get to go like, whoo, I'm done. It will only ever always be a journey. And it's something, that is ongoing. And I think that that's good news, even though, it'd be nice if we could arrive and just be done with it. The fourth confidence builder is choosing confidence. And this is just the distinction I like to make because a lot of us think of confidence as a feeling. And we think either I woke up feeling confident today so I can go do that thing, or I didn't, or I felt confident walking into this opportunity, or I didn't, right? Like it's this thing that is either there or it isn't, or it happens or it doesn't, as opposed to what confidence really is, which is a choice we can make anytime we want. And the reality is we're actually doing this far more than we give ourselves credit for. We often, have an experience or a meeting or an interaction that doesn't go exactly the way we wanted it to. But then we have a next meeting or interaction or opportunity, and we often sort of dust ourselves off and try to show up as our best selves to the next opportunity. We just aren't giving ourselves credit or noticing it all that much. But we have the opportunity, and one of the greatest joys of the work that I do is being able to be a witness to that so often. And so I get to remind myself in those moments where I'm not feeling confident that choosing it is still an available option. And so we've all heard that expression in business, fake it till you make it. I'm not a big fan. Women have been faking far too much for far too long, right? And so my replacement of that is choose it until you become it. Choose confidence moment by moment if you have to, until the feeling catches up, and it will eventually.
I like that. That makes sense. That's powerful.
And then the fifth and probably greatest confidence builder is building that internal trust. And we started by talking about that. And I have a laundry list of examples, but whatever builds trust for you is great. Keeping commitments, setting and communicating boundaries, speaking your truth, standing up for yourself, choosing the people you surround yourself with wisely, getting enough sleep, prioritizing your mental and emotional and physical health. There are the 3 Ps, which are planning, preparing, practicing. These are all things that are done between us and us, right? It's an internal thing that builds trust and something that we can practice anytime we want on an ongoing basis. And that's, in my opinion, where the rubber meets the road. That's where the real magic happens. So those are the 5 confidence builders. And
you've got some powerful insight here, Nicole. I mean, and it's all common sense. These steps just make so much sense. And it's really a good template for people to follow. I'm
thank
sure
you. Yeah.
There's so much to talk about. I would love to keep you for another hour because people are probably like, I want to pick her brain some more. This makes so much sense. Can people reach out to you? Do you do consultation, or I know you do speaking engagements and that sort of thing?
Yes. So great question. I do speaking engagements. I also have my own podcast. It's called This Is Woman's Work.
Yes.
And that is probably the easiest, most accessible way to, get more of me and my content. And I have amazing guests on, and we cover a whole gamut of topics that are relevant to women, and they bring so much knowledge and wisdom to the mic. So those are my best recommendations. I do coaching as well. And of course, I have my website, NicoleKalil.com, if anybody wants to find and learn more about me and my work. But those are probably your best bets. I have a book too, as you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
But, yeah.
And I love the name of that. I love the name of the book too. Validation is for parking. It's great. What a great title.
Thank you. Yeah. It's kind of meant to be like me, a little salty. But the book actually goes through all of this, all of the confidence derailers, all of the builders, what confidence is. And I have a 40-page workbook companion that goes along with the book. And you don't even need to read the book to do the workbook, but I'd be happy to share the link with you, Shelley, if you want to share it with
absolutely
your listeners.
That'd be great.
But they can get that for free.
Terrific. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes for the podcast. Absolutely. And of course, we are honored to have your podcast, This is Women's Work. We feature that not only on womenroadwarriors.com on our Power Network tab, but also on womenspowernetwork.net, where there are many podcasts for women, but you've got a powerful one that really will help a lot of ladies out there. And then your website.
Thank you. And I appreciate you sharing that on your site. That's really, really helpful. I'm grateful for that.
Oh, definitely. Well, that's what we want to do, is to empower women on their road to success. And your podcast definitely does that.
Yeah.
We want everybody to be successful. And your authenticity message is a powerful one. Now, Kalil is spelled Kalil, correct?
You got it. Yes.
Okay. So it's NicoleKalil.com where people can find you. Can people message you?
On Instagram, I'm still on there, even though I never post anything, at Nicole M. Kalil. You're welcome to DM me or LinkedIn. And there's a contact form on the website. Yeah, absolutely. Reach out however you want. Me or my team will get back to you. And as it relates to emails and DMs, I do all of my own stuff. So you're actually getting to me and hearing from me.
Terrific. We've covered a lot of territory here. And I really appreciate you sharing all of your wisdom, because sitting back and listening to it, it's like, why hadn't I thought about that? This makes so much sense, It
was my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this latest episode. And if you want to hear more episodes of Women Road Warriors or learn more about our show, be sure to check out womenroadwarriors.com. And please follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. On our website, we also have a selection of podcasts just for women. There are a series of podcasts from different podcasters, So if you're in the mood for women's podcasts, just click the Power Network tab on womenroadwarriors.com. You'll have a variety of shows to listen to anytime you want to. Podcasts made for women. Women Road Warriors is on all the major podcast channels like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, YouTube, and others. So check us out, and please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at sjohnson@womenroadwarriors.com.